Dr. Stenger just showed up, so we now have a quorum. So we will begin, we will convene as the Board of Health, and we will start out with item number 1, where Ellen's going to introduce Jen Kirscher, our new public health visiting unit manager.
We are so excited that Jen Kirscher, who's been with the department, how long?
Almost 12 years. With
Really?
this,
I was going to say
12 years.
almost 15 as a public health nurse, and was recently stepped forward and was just promoted as the nurse manager for the home visiting group, which has a couple of different programs, including our Healthy Families efforts. And we have a full management team. I know you've been hearing me talk about it for 2.5 years, maybe 3 as of now. So we're thrilled to have you, and thank you for stepping forward. And if you just, I think you know Pam.
Yeah.
Pam Boyd. Ross Miller is the chair of the board.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Dr. Stenger is the physician member of the board that the board appoints. I don't know if you've met Anna Conley, attorney.
Nice to meet you.
There's no Julie Moore. The other managers.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited. I've been here 12 years and eager to lead the home visiting team as we go forward. So, thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah, nice to meet you, and congratulations and welcome.
Thank
She
you.
was just most recently the union president, so we took care of that.
You've been president for a long time.
No, she just closed a negotiation and got hired the next day. So.
Switching sides.
Leadership.
No. Isn't this a win-win situation?
It is. It is. It was leadership, definitely. So, welcome. We just have a lot of changes down there that we know of from the cuts. But we also have some changes that we're looking forward to. And if I could give while you're here, because it's really a celebration of what I would otherwise give under the director's report, I'd like to tell you that we just received notice of an award of a grant from the Montana Healthcare Foundation to evaluate using a controlled study model to evaluate the foster child health program and to try to prove it up as an evidence-based model and to at least get it up to a promising practice through the NACHO organization. And so we start on that December 1. And that's a 2-year grant with an outside evaluator. So that's just one of the things that Jen will be doing.
Yep, that's exciting. Thank you all. Very nice to meet you.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thanks much. All right, now we move on to item number 2, which is an action item, which Lee Hickey's going to guide us through, which is approval of the basic emergency operation plan, if we so choose.
I have a very short PowerPoint presentation. Okay. So I'm Leah Hickey, and I'm the Public Health Emergency Preparedness Coordinator for the Health Department. And I am presenting an updated version of the Emergency Operations Plan, Part 1, the basic plan. Reaccreditation requirements kind of were the catalyst for this update. It hasn't been updated since 2013, so this was a great opportunity to kind of dig in and do some revisions and reformatting. So the Emergency Operations Plan has 3 parts. It has Part 1, the basic plan, which is what I'm presenting today. And the basic plan is kind of the foundation of the entire plan. It provides an overview of the health department's emergency operations, and it also guides the development of Part 2 and Part 3. Part 2 is the functional annexes, which are a collection of annexes that address specific elements of emergency response. And then Part 3 is the hazard-specific annexes, which address it's a collection that addresses specific incidences. So we only have a pandemic influenza plan for Part 3 right now, but I'm hoping to make more of them in the next few years. So that's the plan. For the revisions for this update, my main focus was just to make it more user-friendly. So I deleted a lot of kind of repetitive information and unnecessary information, tried to make it more simple. And then I reorganized everything that was left into 7 clear sections. Section 1, the purpose, scope, and assumptions, that includes what we call a situation, which is in every plan, and it's just Missoula County specific things like potential public health hazards for Missoula County and Missoula County demographics, and something where someone could walk into, they could come from another state and come help us, and they'd be able to read that and get an idea of what our county looks like. Resources and vulnerabilities, similar, it's Missoula County, healthcare resources and specific vulnerabilities to us, like environmental vulnerabilities or access and functional needs populations are included in that. Section 3 is organization of specifically the health department and then also of our kind of city-county structure, city-county officials. And then concept of operations is pretty self-explanatory. That's kind of the meat of the plan. Just outlines our emergency response. It's pretty beefy and full, and has all of those elements in there. And then information management has like operational communications, as well as like crisis and emergency risk communications. Talks about that stuff. Roles and responsibilities, self-explanatory. And then the last section is plan maintenance and references. And I actually added a section, a part in the plan maintenance that says that we'll review the plan every 2 years as needed. So we'll be taking a look at it a little bit more often. That was part of reaccreditation as well to meet those requirements. And then I also reorganized the appendices and the attachments, pulled some information that was in the plan and made them into appendices so that they were a little bit more accessible. And then I made the emergency contact information an attachment on its own, mainly so that we could pull it off if we needed to share the plan. Sometimes other agencies ask us for a copy of our plan so that they can have a template to build their own. So I just wanted to be able to pull that off easily. And then I just updated, other information, statistics and contact info. One of the main things was the hazard identification, which is in the situation. I made that match the 2017 pre-disaster mitigation plan, which is the most recent one that Missoula County has done. So there were some things that changed in that. Wildfires remained number 1, though. And Missoula County population estimates, have changed since 2013. I updated the emergency contact info, and that's for key employees at the health department. And then I got a new org chart from administration, and then I also added 223 West Alder as an additional health department facility that we have added since 2013. That's about it.
Great, thanks. And so does anybody have any questions or comments, or Jean?
So because of the flooding that we had this spring, the county is planning to apply for a grant to kind of look at especially the Tower Street area. So there might be a piece to add as to hazard related to flooding, because even the areas that weren't flooded by river water this year were inundated with groundwater that affected, of course, public health and safety because of septics that were just plumbed full of water. So as we go forward, that could be something that gets added, I would think.
Just a comment, because we've made a change in the maternal child health, we might want to update the organizational chart before you make a final copy of this.
Oh.
So,
The one you just turned up? Yes.
Jen just, yeah.
That would be great. It happened fast. And then no more changes on the organizational chart.
For a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Just catch Julie up real quick, since we're on an action item, we're reviewing the emergency operations plan. Just in our discussion phase of it.
Thank you.
Any other,
So this is much easier to read and access information from. I just compared to the last one. I love it.
Good.
It'll be easier for my students to understand as well.
That was my main goal.
Yeah.
James, this is Julie Moore. Are you able to hear everybody okay?
I was able to hear everything except one of the last comments.
Okay.
So I think it was when Julie walked in. But everything else I could hear just fine.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any other board or staff comments or questions? I guess at that point, we're ready to entertain a motion then, since this is an action item, it requires approval.
Move that we approve the emergency operations basic plan
With the amendment to the org chart.
with the amendment to the org chart.
All right, and now that we have a motion on the action item, is there any public comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So moved.
James says aye.
All right, thanks, James.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lee.
Much more approachable.
Great work, Lee. So now we move on to, we don't have the October 18 minutes, so we move on to, Shannon's going to walk us through the community decay project.
Yeah. There we go. My name is Shannon Terrio. I'm the Director of Environmental Health, and we wanted to share with you a success story. It's still in progress, so I guess we're really giving you a progress report, but it was a pretty innovative project that came a lot from Anna Conley's creative thinking in how to make this happen, and some private donors donating a significant amount of money to the tune of $10,000, significant. Having great community partners in Republic Services and Pacific Recycling who did a lot to make this work and gave us some deep discounts so that we could make it work. The trust building abilities of our junk vehicle coordinator, Jim Beyondich, and of Mason McCullough, who works at Pacific Recycling, and the cooperation of the owner. Every single part of that had to happen in order for this project to take place. So what we did is we were dealing with a pretty significant community decay issue, very visible to the community and those passersby, that had just gotten worse and worse over time. These are all from different parts of the property. So you can see that there is just a tremendous amount of materials there. And it was to the point where we've worked with this owner over the years, but it was to the point where it just wasn't within the owner's scope to be able to take care of the problem. So I'm showing you quite a few of before pictures just because I'll just tell you the property's not perfect afterwards, but there were 3 to 4 people up there for a week with heavy equipment, and one of the reasons why it's not perfect is that we were using heavy equipment, and so you can see that there's just a lot of material that wasn't picked up, and some of it was not picked up because we didn't want to. We had a limited budget, so we had a limited disposal budget, and they didn't want to make it too heavy by putting in a lot of dirt. And so this is, it's not that this is in compliance, but this has been left for the owner to deal with. The second thing is that we did leave a fair amount of burnable material there. And so we are working to figure out how the owner, how this material can be burned with an appropriate burn permit come next year. So that will clean up the property quite a bit more. Another issue is we just couldn't get to everything. And so they really focused on the pieces, the parts that were the most significant, and believe it or not, this wasn't one of them, and visible from the county road, the public highway that goes by. And then the other part is that the owner did keep a lot of stuff, and it's just not all very organized, but it doesn't have to be as long as it's not visible from the road. So as long as it's not garbage, And, some of that we could argue about, but it's okay to be there as long as it's not visible. And then this is the main mobile home on the property and was not scheduled to be taken. The owner, however, asked us to take it in the last waning days of the cleanup. You could see that it's actually bulging out. Obviously, it's not at all protected from the elements, and so it put us a little over budget, but we did take it, and then that was replaced by these were 2 RVs that were already on the property, already weren't being disposed of, and a shed, but it is they're hiding some other stuff behind there. But the property looks so much better. We ended up removing, I feel bad saying we, but the health department definitely had a part in it. But Jim Beyondich was there for a week and worked, I don't know, like almost 40 hours of overtime. And then Pacific folks worked overtime, and they didn't charge us any overtime hours. And they didn't charge us for the equipment being moved to and from the site. So there's just a lot that happened to try to make it work. Jim Beyondich was out there in order to help keep them in their in the machines as much as possible. So he would move things around and help the machines like scoop up things so that they didn't have to waste time getting in and out of their machine. But they removed 159 tons of garbage. 159 tons of garbage, even with what you saw is still left there, and that didn't include an additional 19.6 tons of recyclable materials, including that burned out bus that you saw earlier. That was one of the things that were removed. So quite a few vehicles were removed, but almost 20 tons of recyclables were removed. And when they removed them, they credited us toward the project for it. So it's really pretty stunning. So this is what, all of this, you would have seen a lot of garbage before. But it's really, this was full of stuff, and this was full of stuff, and that was full of stuff. So it's not over. That part is over. We spent about $21,000 on that cleanup, a week's worth of work. And we've already done an inspection. So one of the things is that the owner signed a compliance agreement, and with that compliance agreement agreed to let us remove things and to let us do inspections and to keep the property cleaned up. And so Jim Beyondich continues to work with him to let him know what has to be cleaned and what the priorities should be. He and Jim Irvin, the sanitarian for the area, went up and did an inspection and talked to the owner about what needs to happen next. We're still working on the septic situation up there. The owner did apply for a permit. We may be coming back to you and asking for there to be the ability for there to be a pit privy up there, at least for a while, until there's running water and stuff. And then maybe you want to talk about the electrical part of it.
Sure. So as you could see from, maybe if you go back to that mobile home.
Yeah.
So there is power to the site, but it's a power pole. And so the owner has his freezer right next to the power pole, so he can at least have food, but he doesn't have power to his those homes. Also, the folks who contributed, the anonymous donors, would prefer that those still not be visible from the road because, we have to be honest, this gentleman's a hoarder. And he sees value in stuff that can be reused somehow. He doesn't have a place to reuse it, but it still has value in his mind. So there is a wish that we could set these back further toward the trees, and they're really on this site. There used to be a gravel pit, so there is a big hole back there. So it was said that they couldn't have power, or he couldn't have additional power pole there that he needed to have buried. I talked with Missoula Electric Co-op, that's not true. They're willing to work with him. We're gonna wait till Jim gets back from vacation because of the relationship that he has with the owner. And Missoula Electric Co-op is willing to make sure that we get power where we need it, so that he can have power to his house, but also be set back a little bit more. And then we haven't got a number as to what that might cost, but I'm sure we can come up with help to get that paid for too if we need to pay for a pole. But so hopefully, I mean, that was one of the things I was concerned about, is that while most of us would go by and go, oh my God, who would want to live there? Somebody lives there, and we have to make sure that he has, he will now have better living conditions, I think, than he did before. So I really appreciate all the work, and I've seen it from the highway, and it's much better.
Yeah. And we're committed to kind of seeing this project through. $21,000 is a lot of resources, and that's just the cash resources that went into that 1 week. So.
But that's not all health department.
Oh no.
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 We did.
$10,000 was donated from private interest.
Then Anna crafted the agreement, the formal agreement for all the parties as to what role they would play, who would contribute what done would look like for that agreement, because we knew that done probably wasn't gonna reach it, so very creative.
Yeah, we knew going into this we didn't have the resources to clean it up total, but they did an amazing job with what they had.
Has there been any thought or looking into the possibility of doing some sort of action that the county would eventually be reimbursed for some of this cost, like some sort of lien on the property or anything like that?
We used our community decay money that was left from the Smurfett Stone, so it's not like we took money away. I mean, could have been used in other ways, but we didn't take money from the
Not from any
budget.
operating funds, no.
The compliance agreement has provisions that allow us to take those steps should we need to take further steps.
Okay.
It's kind of like getting blood from a turnip.
No, yeah, I understand, that's what I'm presuming. You see
Yeah.
tax liens and whatnot, that would never be paid until there's a property transfers at some point down in the future or something like that.
How far back does this property go? I drive by this all the time because it's turn off to my properties right by that. But how far back does his property go?
It goes up here.
To the edge of the tree. You just can't see them. You really can't see the majority from the highway, even though you think you're seeing a lot of stuff
Yeah.
because of that.
Well, all those, the trailers. I was just wondering how likely it was to be sold to someone else. It's probably not very likely.
Not anytime.
I mean, there's nothing really usable there other than an industrial site.
Although it could be
Gravel pit.
recontoured, it could be a house.
Looks like there's a lot of flat ground there.
Yeah, but it's right on the highway. Like, I mean, it's.
And just in a very, very related sort of way, we're hoping to have the opportunity this legislative session to support a bill that would allow us to use some of our junk vehicle funds to get rid of mobile homes. That could have helped on this property. It certainly could help on Tower Street and some other places. DEQ was going to propose something like that and decided not to. So it will depend on whether a legislator puts that forward and if it makes it through. But we know that at least one of our Missoula legislators, Willis Curdy, is interested in it. So we'll see what happens there. But that would be nice because there's additional money there that we could put to good use for really the essence of what the junk vehicle fund was for, which is to prevent community decay by junk vehicles. And so it's a reasonable way to use that money that counties get. So, and other counties see that as a problem too. So it'd be nice if we can make it work.
Yeah, as long as they don't require us to do everything.
That would be hard.
Yeah, we really
gotta be careful.
Not only want it both ways, we really need to have it both ways, where we have the discretion to use that money, but there's just no way you could
Can't do them all.
do them all.
So I have a question about that. What is the nature of the decision-making process to decide what level of effort and resource gets devoted to what instance of community decay? Is it a complaint-driven process, or was there some, kind of more imminent public health issue here, leaking tank or, groundwater issue, or how do we decide? Because you can't do
everything. Well, this particular, we don't usually have funds like this to put toward it, and so a lot of things came together to make this work. And the first thing is that we had was some donors that were willing to put money toward the project, and then we told them how much it would take, which was like $25,000 to clean up the property. They're like, oh, that's not really what we were thinking. And then Anna had a great idea for how to use some funds that came from kind of, I guess, leftover money is the way to say it, from the Smurfit Stone auction, and knowing that it would really help us to be able to match the money from the donors to be able to make it happen. And so it was just things that came together that that normally we wouldn't be able to do. But this was probably our most visible, largest community decay issue that we have in the county, and one that we know had the least owner resources available to deal with it.
Well, and I had no idea a person lived up there. I've been driving by that for years and years.
Sometimes more than one.
Yeah, and I had no idea. It did not look like anyone could have lived anywhere on that site.
Yeah.
I don't know if your question was also trying to get at what we do on a sort of a regular daily level. The community decay money that the county gets, that comes then through the health department, is donated. So just to have the enforcement, patrol, investigation, and enforcement of community decay complaints, even that staff time is with money that's been given for that purpose by Republic, and has before that BFI. The junk vehicle fund can only be used for what the law says for junk vehicles. We just happen to take that little portion of staff time that can be funded and put it onto the junk vehicle coordinator's job, because they're out doing that, and a lot of times they're all in the same place. But we don't, with the exception of this one time, have a fund. We've even talked about having a revolving loan fund so you can go in and clean it up and then somehow get it. But on a daily, even regular basis, there are no designated funds for cleanup.
And it creates enforcement barriers, because there are situations where the law certainly allows us to go in and clean it up and seek recoupment or file a lien. But unless you have the money to do that in the first place, you can't utilize that. And if you can't utilize that, then you really are stuck with having the person do it. And if they refuse, it's very hard to move forward with an enforcement issue. And I've seen several of those in the past year or so.
Now, if you have garbage, and we have ordinances for garbage, and then you get the more immediate public health concerns, putrefying substances and things like that. If you've had a barrel with an unknown substance or leaking, you can start to look at other authorities. But everything else is just sort of in this basket of community decay.
Yeah.
And it really is, it is complaint driven, because the definition of community decay is really that it's offending somebody.
It's aesthetic.
Yeah. But it's not the only instance of community decay that we have in the county, for sure, but it's one that has generated complaints for a long time and has been something that we've been working on for a long time.
And in this case, I think that we prioritize removal of solid waste and things that did actually have health implications, and that's why we couldn't get all of the aesthetic piece done, because we did try to prioritize the health-related issues.
Right.
So what about community decay that's not visible? Because I know there's an instance up in South Hills right now where
It's a hoarder.
Right. And there are pests and animals that are coming out of non-visible hoarding decay. So it's kind of a public health hazard, but
That would be a health code violation versus community decay if it's solid waste, right?
Well, and it kind of also depends on where it is. If it's
It's in the
inside.
backyard.
Oh, it's outside, yeah. Yeah, if it's garbage, it is something that we can deal with even if it's not visible. Yeah, yeah.
But you can win in court, and that
Still,
stuff doesn't get up and walk away. And I think that's
Right,
where
right.
the pragmatic problem lies.
Yeah, you have to convince somebody to do the work. In this case, we had to convince somebody to let us do the work, which was, of course, a little easier than convincing somebody to clean it up. But that's really what we have right now. And we're lucky that Jim Beyondich is actually pretty successful at it, but for certain cases, it's not, I don't know. It's not, telling somebody to do something doesn't always convince them to do it. And I could show you 4 easily that we're in that situation with right now.
And it's an optional ordinance in that it's created at the commissioner's level. It's one of the rare abilities they have. So it's not at a state level. It's not being looked at as a state problem, regulatory-wise or in terms of funds. So Missoula commissioners chose to deal with it, and now we get to.
Well, thanks, Shannon.
Yeah.
Yes, good, thank you.
All right. Next up is item 5, the journal report, and I'm slated to do the journal report, and I didn't do one, so we can identify.
I think you're slated again
We can
then.
identify me.
Your name's there 2 times for a reason, apparently.
Yeah, so we'll just,
You're gonna set a record here, Ross.
it's entirely possible.
The chairman could do that.
Entirely possible. So anyways, I'll punt until December. Then it's item 6, strategic priority updates, and Alicia Johnson is gonna walk us through food safety goal 5.
Julie, which one is mine?
You are, the 3rd row, the left one.
Maybe. Is it up?
It should open up.
Perfect. All right.
Then you forget.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alicia Johnson, and I'm with the Licensed Establishment Group. And I'm happy to be here today to give an update on our strategic plan for the food safety group. We chose to work toward substantial compliance with the FDA voluntary National Retail Food Regulatory Program standards, which is a huge mouthful, which thank goodness for us in the food protection realm, we just refer to them as the program standards. Much shorter, much more straightforward. The reason why we chose this as our strategic plan is it's a really good tool to figure out where your local food protection program's at and provide measurable ways to move forward and improve public health in your community. So we're really looking forward to doing this, but it's also a really ambitious task, as you're going to find out. So our year 1 work plan, as I mentioned, it's ambitious. It's actually more ambitious than what we're even seeing up here in writing, and I hope that I kind of capture all the things that we're attempting to do. Our first objective, which was completing our program self-assessment, we've already completed that. We did that in October. And the self-assessment in a nutshell is looking at all 9 program standards, and they're broken down into some subcategories. And it's figuring out if your program meets it, doesn't meet it, or partially meets it, so that you can find a plan on how to move forward. And it makes sense that we need to knock this out first before we tackle any of the program standards, because you got to know where you're at in order to move forward. So we made this a very big priority. We completed that in October and got it to our FDA regional specialist. The second piece that we have for our objective is meeting FDA Standard 5, and that is coming up with a foodborne illness and injury response plan. We do have several components of this together already, but as you can see, there are 4 items that we're continuing to work toward. Part of that is coming up with a written traceback and recall procedure. Linda Eo, who's our foodborne illness lead, is currently working on that. And we are also doing an analysis of the types of data that we're tracking currently and looking at whether or not we need to improve the way that we're doing it so we can actually do a good analysis at the end of each year. One thing that we have met to date is we do have language, an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, that's going to be pulled into our agreement with NPHHS so that we can have some laboratory support as well as other types of support from the state when we do end up with an illness investigation. We've just had that there and assumed it's always going to be there, but now we have that in writing, and that's a really good piece to have. For the third objective, it's meeting FDA Standard 7. In a nutshell, this is the way we provide food safety education and engage our community and our stakeholders. This particular objective, I believe we already meet. When I did the self-assessment, I knew that we had the food safety education component of this down, but the second part of it is coming up with something like a Food Safety Advisory Council or engaging in meetings with stakeholders, and I wanted to spend a little bit more time looking at how we do that. We are members of the Clark Fork Farmers Market Board. I don't know if you guys know that. So we have a sanitarian that's a member of that board. That particular board has the mayor, has other elected officials that come to it. It has food operators, and it also has other folks who are just interested in local food and food safety. And that is what we're going to use as our stakeholder engagement section. I have found a third-party person to audit our Standard 7, and I'm hoping to get that to her by the 1st, which is what we have slated up there, so we're well on our way for this one. So some other things that are not captured with our work plan, but we're currently working toward them. In the first year of the program standards, you're encouraged to do what we call a risk factor study, which is really looking at how do food establishments really function in your community, what are some areas for improvement that you need to start tracking. And so that is a project that we're going to tackle next year, and we're in the early stages of planning that particular study. But as a part of the study, we want to make sure that we get the highest quality data that we can, and that comes down to well-trained staff and making sure that we're always inspecting the same way. So we are actually dipping into program standards 2 and 4. We do have a written policy that we have in draft form for how we're going to have uniformity of inspections, and I'm happy to say that 3 of our 5 inspectors are standardized to the FDA method of inspections. 1 will be standardized by the end of the year, and our last person should be standardized by January 31st of next year.
Does that just mean by education?
Well, there's education.
How do you
standardize
somebody?
Okay, so there's a part to it where you inspect with the FDA standardized inspector. So I've been standardized by FDA. And then I go out with our inspectors and make sure that they don't not only have the educational background and have done so many inspections on their own, but I make sure that when they go into an establishment, are they looking for the risk factors they need to look for? Are they encouraging, the food safety education on the part of the operator? Are they giving them the right corrective actions and timelines? Are we all writing it up the same way? Are we marking it on the form the same way? And honestly, it's no surprise to me, but the inspectors that I've gone out with for standardization, we are really, really close together. Mm-hmm. And I know that that is something that's difficult to do. We're all humans. Sometimes we interpret things or see things differently. But I'm really pleased at how in line we are, and I'm hoping we can continue to work on that. I know I whipped through a lot very fast, and I'm also a very fast talker, so if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to tackle them.
Will this result in establishments being graded?
Not necessarily. That is something we can look at. There are some complications with grading establishments. There's actually quite a bit of research that has gone into, does it actually improve food safety? Does it really improve the way that the community perceives the food safety on certain establishments? There's actually I thought it was an excellent debate at the National Environmental Health Association conference 2 years ago, where they looked at, sometimes inspectors, there is that whole uniformity aspect of it, but there's also a leaning to, well, if I mark them off here, it might discourage better performance. It's also distracting as well. So for example, some of the grading schemes that I have seen, if you have one cold item at a temperature, it's the same amount of points off as if your entire walk-in cooler isn't operating. That has a completely different food safety impact. You're talking pretty much all of the food for an establishment being out of compliance versus one item, but yet they're graded the same. And so the interpretation of those grades can be kind of skewed one way or the other, and it does kind of get discouraging for some operators. It can also be a little discouraging for inspectors. Overall, our goal is to get people to recognize what the big things are and to work with them to do a better job. And I don't know if a grading scheme would necessarily get us there, But that said, we do recognize that there is a public information component to that that's really important. And I think there are other ways that we can think of maybe to achieve something that's similar, but not necessarily an A, B, or C grading scheme. If that makes sense. One that I really like is the food safety stoplight. Hawaii does something very similar to this, where if it's a green light establishment, yeah, they have some violations, but they're working toward correcting them, or they're lower in importance. They aren't necessarily risk factors. Yellow would mean something like we're coming back for a follow-up inspection. So yeah, there are some things that need fixed. Yes, we do have concerns, but it's not necessarily a red where we may be looking at compliance. That makes sense. There are more than one ways to do it. This program standard system doesn't necessarily mean establishments will be graded. It just means that our performance and the way that we work with establishments will improve.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting we grade anybody. I was just curious what the end goal was.
Yeah.
It seems like it's education, so.
It's education. It's also looking at our resources too. There's a resource component. How we work with operators, we're hoping to find better ways of doing that, more efficient ways of doing that. Other departments in the state have been doing this for a while or are currently working on them, and they see quite a bit of benefit.
Biggest thing is just identifying risks so people don't get sick.
Yeah, identifying risks, making sure that people are identifying the same ones. How to respond to foodborne illnesses, making sure that your rules and your codes are in line to actually do the right work. So, yeah.
And I think this is a good place to put the plug in if, for checking our online inspection reports. For anybody on MCAT or others that doesn't know, you can actually read what was found during the inspection, how it was addressed, and why it matters.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you.
And next we move on to Travis Ross is going to walk through Surface Water Protection Goal 9. Travis.
Thank you. Yes, goal 9 was to develop, and sorry I don't have any slides to look at, but to develop a channel migration zone study and then a response plan for environmental and public health impacts associated with channels moving. And as we saw in 2018 and many years prior, the Bitterroot and the Clark Fork moved around quite a bit. And this is above and beyond floodplain issues where we may experience a certain amount of just a water level increase. This is actual channels migrating, or a bolting where they just cut off a bend. And so there are two parts to that project. They're developing the CMZ, the Channel Migration Zone study, and then the response plan. With the Channel Migration Zone study, we're working with a consulting firm in Bozeman to acquire first the aerial photography. So we have put the aerial photography out to bid and selected a contractor that will fly the imagery. Unfortunately, we hope to get that done this fall because you need the leaves off the trees and preferably lower water conditions. But now we have snow that affects the photography. So we're gonna have to wait now until late winter, early spring to get the aerial photography flown. Some really good news though is we've had some broad support for this project and a couple of big contributions financially to it. So the Missoula Conservation District has committed $15,000 towards the project, which almost entirely covers the aerial imagery. And then the Natural Resource Damage Program through the Department of Justice is interested because of Smurfit Stone. And this is a big reason we're interested in it too. So they've committed some money as well. So some good partnerships developing. Another exciting thing is currently we have our first official job posting for a hydrogeologist. So that person will be helpful in going through this study and interpreting it and using it. So that's what I have for strategic goal 9.
The idea to have a hydrogeologist, I think it's important to point out, or worth pointing out, that with your leadership and analyzing the water quality district and having the opportunity to make some changes, that's one of the ones you identified.
Yep. So this person will be helpful on a number of fronts. This is just one, but yes, they will be able to help with some geochemical questions and groundwater movement questions throughout the valley.
So there might be another opportunity to partner, since it's being delayed, the LiDAR part of it. So one of the things the county's looking at is working with FEMA on that flood inundation. And part of the project would be to do LiDAR from on the Clark Fork, from where the Blackfoot comes in and where the Bitterroot comes in. So one section of the river that hopefully you could coordinate.
Yes.
So that'd be with Adrian Beck would be working on that.
Okay, and I've called Adrian, so I was also wondering if there might be other FEMA money available.
And there might be. We're just learning about it all.
Yeah. Thank you.
Is the channel migration zone an official designation like the floodplain, or is it more of a we're just studying where this could happen?
Our county is pretty progressive in that front, in that the floodplain rules allow the administrator to use additional information to determine flood risk, and so the CMZ is something that's used in Missoula County. It doesn't have its own standalone regulations, but it's just additional information that the floodplain administrator can use. It certainly could be regulatory, but that's not the idea right now, is to get the data and then develop the response plan. I mean, that's one of your potential tools in the response plan is the regulatory means. There's, education is part of it too.
So that's Shannon.
I was just going to say that. I mean, one of the things that we're excited about the channel migration zone is the idea that we might be able to use it for our septic regulations, especially when, our experience this spring when some trailers actually went into the river, they are associated with septic systems. And so we don't know what it will look like. We need to sit down and make that response plan, but we definitely recognize this year that being in a place where the channel wants to go is different than just being in the floodplain. And so it might make sense for there to be a regulatory response to that.
And that's why the LiDAR is just an interesting tool that when you look at even the Smurfett Stone site, which has been, had a berm around it for 50 some years, is you can still see where the river wants to be. So it's kind of fascinating to see. We've done the same with all the work we've done up 9 Mile, where they, obliterated creeks for a little gold, and you can still see where they're supposed to be. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Travis.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, now we move on to item 7, which Ellen's going to walk us through, which is a strategic priority update. Kids in regards mostly goal 1.
Is it the one on the right, Julie?
Yes.
Gonna have to color code them or something.
Would be nice if we could.
I know. I'll just
Click that little icon down at the bottom, that one.
This one?
No.
Oh,
Down at the bottom.
Right,
Bottom right.
down on the black bar.
That one? No, that's
It's
an
hiding.
example.
Oh, it's hiding now.
It is hiding.
Sorry about that.
We'll just do it this way.
I will help you.
Just do it this way.
Let me help you.
Let's see it. This is very brief.
gotta get rid of the bar and then
Very brief. Thank you.
Yeah.
Get my opera glasses to do this. So this is in our internal capacity support, and this is our new branding, our whole new section on branding or marketing. I don't remember right at the moment what we called it. Here we go. Community relations and branding. And yes, this is not a very measurable goal. I want to admit that right up front, but this is the first time we've even looked in this direction. And so we're trying to scope it out, understanding what it is. And one of the goals that is important to getting started on this actually doesn't appear in the strategic plan, so I want to report on it. For those of you that were at the meeting where we did my evaluation and my goals, I had put forth that I need to obtain some professional development opportunities and complete them on this very topic. Not that I'm the only one that needs it, but I think to lead into it, I clearly have to learn more and understand really what is it we're talking about here. And the most incredible opportunity fell into my lap 2 weekends ago. I got an email that talked about a continuing education class at U of M on it's entitled Value-Driven Marketing. And I thought, wow, I have such an attitude against the whole idea of like commercial marketing. So I knew I had some attitude adjustment, not just learning what is marketing. How do you sell what it is you're trying to do or to change? And it started 2 days after I got the email. I signed up for it. As of tonight, I'll be halfway through it. It is phenomenal, just phenomenal. It was like it was designed for me. So although this doesn't show up on this plan, it does on my professional goals, and I'm just really excited to dive into it. But I don't get to put a check mark there.
Who's teaching that over there?
Mario Schultzky.
Yeah.
And it's like a seminar approach. It's great. We have people that are doing everything from, running a distillery to having a professional marketing position in town on international manufacturing things to, what is it you want to sell? And it's been very, very good to get my head around it. So I don't have any check marks here. The first one, you can see we are late as of this week because I did think that I would be able to bring you the cash budget for your adoption. Unfortunately, not quite 2 months ago, I discovered when I was working on the cash budget, which I did introduce you to early in the fiscal year, but we wanted the year to end. So as I was again preparing it for your your action in October, I discovered that our levied amount of money for the health fund and animal control was, it looked very incorrect. I took that to the CFO. He agreed that the levy was incorrect. He has a plan for how to fix that because you can't change a levy, but it's almost $70,000 of ongoing revenue, and I want to put a correct cash budget in front of you. What I don't have an answer for is when he will actually formally correct that so that the commissioners sign off on the plan for correction, and I can bring you something that has been approved through that whole system. So I had hoped to do that today. I'll keep pushing on that. What we want to get to, though, is that even though we don't know yet what we want to do, we certainly didn't budget anything to try to get some consultation or anything to get the whole department started, whether that's an assessment or classes for others in the department or anything. That's just not in our operational budget. So I'm going to now have to defer that to next month and nag and hope that that formal action takes place. So that's where we're at.
I just want to reiterate again, I'm willing to help for free. I run an ad agency, so if there's anything I can do to help you work through the phases, because you don't have to do it all at once. You can start with something small.
Yeah. It won't be all at once.
Yeah, there'll be objectives per quarter, and then
one of the things we're working on in the class right now is, there's folks who only run one business, not that that's simple.
Right.
But your homework, in addition to your other didactic portions, is to find your minimal viable audience.
Right.
And
That won't work for you.
Yeah,
You have
except
multiple
I have to
audiences.
for the mental exercise, so that's been
Yeah.
really good. What is it you finally, really, which one do you want to focus on first, just for learning purposes? And every time somebody speaks up in seminar about, well, this is my minimal viable, I'm not gonna do this, I'm gonna start here. He hones it down and hones it down and hones it down. And he really pushes us away from the thinking that everything is promotion. That promotion is what everybody thinks it is, and it's advertising, and as I'm sure you know
It's
this.
education.
And connection, and then how to do that. And that's pretty exciting. I mean, it all makes intuitive sense. So, and he said, and it also, you can feel better about not having a huge advertising or promotional budget. So that's where we're at. No check marks yet, except I'm starting to learn and starting to get an attitude adjustment about, okay, this is worthy. Thanks.
Thanks, Ellen. Next is item 8. Pam's going to update us on Maternal Child Health Advisory Council.
So we didn't have a lot going on this week. Kara Hansen came and talked to us from the Nurse Family Partnership at the Health Department. And she came with a proposal, basically, to see if the Maternal Child Advisory Committee would be a advisory board for their Nurse Family Partnership, and asked if I would bring it to the board for consideration. Their advisory board currently is Healthy Start, and they started that because they felt that there were a lot of other organizations that have visiting programs, and that there needed to be coordination. And evidently, the plan that everybody's coordinating is not happening out of that. And so she's feeling that they're just not at a very good place where they're there, and would like to bring it back to the Maternal Child Health Board, where they feel it has a better home in the health department. So that was kind of what we discussed, and so I am bringing it to the board for consideration. It's not on the agenda today, but if we could put it on maybe as a discussion and an agenda item for action, and they could come and talk a little bit about why they would like to be here. That would be
Yeah.
sure.
Sounds real reasonable.
So other than that, there hasn't been super strong turnout for the board or for the advisory meetings, and so we're looking at how that could be improved, and so re-looking at who's on the board and ways to better remind and stimulate them to come. That's pretty much it for the meeting.
Great. So I presume staff will look at adding that to our
Yeah,
agenda.
for December. Try for December.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, thanks, Pam.
Mm-hmm.
Next is for Ellen to set a date for Health, Water, and Air Board teleconference meetings to
So-
approve minutes.
Preparing for accreditation, and also in the process, the county's in the process of switching the way they put links on their website over to a SharePoint system. So we have a couple different changes going on at the time we're getting ready for accreditation, and we're also looking at a change. Julie's investigating a change in doing minutes using some of the technology that they're now using in the for the commissioners' journals to save time. So while all those things are either changing or being looked at or being required of us, we, as you know, still have a backlog of minutes that we did not get to you. I apologize for your approval. And we have a work plan to try to get those to you, and we're proposing the unusual, but we hope efficient approach of getting you a packet of those minutes and doing a teleconference board meeting, simply to get those all the way through the formal process so they can be uploaded and submitted.
They need to be done before the December meeting. Before the 20th, we'd like to try to have more of them approved and be able to get them posted. So
We're uploading our FAB documents by the middle, well, we're not uploading them, but they have to be ready to be uploaded by a self-imposed deadline, the middle of December.
So is the county on SharePoint yet?
The county is working on setting up SharePoint, and in fact, we're in the process now with regard to board agendas and minutes, making a switch so that stuff is available through SharePoint now.
Well, you can
in
authorize,
connection with the website.
you can authorize through SharePoint, so you can route it through SharePoint and have everybody check off their authorization. You can do it that way, and it's a legal process.
We don't have that
It's
capability
internal,
yet.
I mean, we aren't all, not everybody's internal.
Right.
You can give people external logins to SharePoint for things like that.
I'm not sure if we're at that point.
The
Okay.
county's project is big enough, they've got other things going on besides
We have
the
800
board
people
stuff,
to get
so-
on first.
Okay, that's why I was asking if you were on yet or not.
Well, we are, departments are, but not everybody is.
It's kind of been beta testing for a while internally.
But there's totally a
That's
function
not why the
within it that
minutes
does
are
that
not
specific
to
thing.
you,
Yes.
But that's what we hope to get them to, where everything will move faster.
But we don't have that in our bylaws, though, to say that's the way we can do it.
No, we don't.
So there are some things that have to change over the long term to get to that point. But certainly one of the ultimate goals, as more progress is made in the county's efforts to start using SharePoint more extensively, is to look at ways that we can open up through the SharePoint site access for board members to get at documents
Yeah.
rather than being sent by email. And some of these other kinds of functionality, but we're just in the very early stages right now, and they've got one SharePoint expert working many projects, so some of that's coming in the future.
A lot of boards are adding to their bylaws now electronic signature and electronic approval for, and Skyping and that sort of thing, so.
So on the agenda, we had proposed that we would be asking for a teleconference of the three boards the last week of November, but Ellen and I were talking this week, and we were thinking more of a day, the first week of December. And everybody would be able to participate by phone. We'll get the minutes to you in advance of that meeting, and the sole purpose would be to just go through and quickly do the approvals on the outstanding items. And of course, because they are technically public meetings, we would need to have the standing items for public comments and board and staff comments not on the agenda. So we don't anticipate that it would be a very long session, maybe an hour tops, and possibly wouldn't even take that long to get through all three meetings, but we do need a quorum to be able to do the approvals, so.
And so it has to happen before our next board meeting because of accreditation issues, or what's the reason?
Because we've got a deadline by December 15th to get
All our documents.
all of our different documents ready, so.
So then would we not have the regular November meeting? the
No,
December
this
meeting?
would be strictly to
those
approve
meetings
of backlog
catch
minutes.
up.
We have a very full agenda building up for the December 20 meeting of different action items that are of a bigger scope than just approving minutes. So we are planning on having that meeting.
I'm available either one of those weeks.
Okay. So we can send out an email, I can send it out tomorrow morning with a doodle poll on days and times, and we can see what would work best for everyone if you're good to go with it.
You copy Sarah on mine, right?
Pardon?
You copy Sarah on mine?
Yes.
And Jean, in talking with, Julie's been talking with your staff in the commissioner's office. Their reports are experiencing a lot less time and faster turnaround and still capturing. I mean, have you noticed that? I
You mean
the reports
using
we're
SharePoint?
getting, not SharePoint.
Your Sonics AI software
The
that
AI
they're
software?
using now to do.
I just let them do that stuff, it's above my pay grade.
Yeah.
I
It
mean, I
sounds
see
good. I
that
mean,
things turn around fine, but
Okay. Yeah, they're reporting going from sometimes 8 weeks to get all those done to.
oh, yeah, oh, now I know what you're talking about, yeah, because I have, so oftentimes when you're the chair of the commission, you have to sign journals. And,
Right.
for the year that you were, well, I was the chair last year, and I've almost signed them all now. In fact, I think I finished December, which is usually, that's like 6 or 8 months ahead of what we usually do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because the
that's
equipment
what-
works better and they can, I mean, they don't have to type as much.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what we're looking to move into.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know about others, but our usual day of the week and time of our health board meetings would be good options for me.
Thursday.
So we'll put that on the doodle poll, and when we get a quorum, we'll go.
Yeah.
Well, and I wouldn't think it would take an hour just to do minutes.
Yeah.
If we
No,
read
we
them
want to get
ahead.
them to you though, you know,
Yeah.
so you don't have it, I just got these,
Yeah.
then ask you to approve them.
Yeah.
So in the spirit of quality improvement, are we working on a plan to prevent a future
Yes.
backlog of?
Well, and that's what you meant by
Minutes?
this system, this new system that our staff is using for minutes.
Uh-huh.
They don't have to recreate things, it populates.
It does it, it does it straight from the tape, and then you edit it.
So basically
We
a
have to
document.
transcribe it from the tape and then edit it, which is, you know, it's archaic, but that's where we're still at.
So we basically skip a step, or we automate a step by having voice recognition software
Yep.
generate a transcript from the audio record.
Right, so you might look through and see it says Ross instead of Russ or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of software out there, the ones that they're using, they really like. For us, it's the quality of the tape and the format of the tape that I think we're gonna have to invest in, which I'm fine with, but, because what we're doing.
But the other option could be to use the commissioners' meeting room, which is all set up with all that equipment.
We've looked at that, and I will say that preliminarily, some of the stumbling blocks with using room 151 at the courthouse annex is that to keep your Thursday meetings, that's a day when the room is already solidly booked with ongoing meetings on a recurring basis. There are some.
On this particular week?
On the third Thursday of the month, yes, that's what we've been told, is that that's a difficult day to try to get on the schedule.
Because we don't have our public meetings that day because of this conflict.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what the meetings are.
We haven't
but-
taken any option off the table, but the current reports are this system, and you know, if it looks like we have to invest a bunch of money, but it looks like it's good sound, capturing the sound good. Well, the first time, this AI system spits it out, and that's hours of.
So you're talking about Sonics with an X, S-O-N-I-X?
Yes.
Sonics AI?
Yeah.
So that's in the cloud, so you record directly to them. You have to record directly to the cloud, and I
But-
think you buy
but you-
hours.
But you need something better than this.
Right.
Right.
To
Well,
record
yeah.
it.
Right.
Yeah, but
So
you,
we're,
so
that's
so
what
you
we're
wouldn't
with.
have to be in a specific location, you'd have to,
But you do
Right,
have to have
you
good
have to have
recording
a
equipment.
mechanism that transfers the recorded audio file to them in the cloud. And I've already, for instance, used our little digital recordings that we take. We've used MCAT recordings. Unfortunately, even though listening to the recording, the sound quality may sound very good, it's not sufficient for Sonics AI. The transcripts are almost unintelligible. So we've got to look at a little bit different piece, such as what they have over at room 151, where
It's capturing the sound
people
is
have
what the
mics,
piece we don't have.
and it goes right into some type of recording
yeah.
device.
I know sometimes you can record it into OneNote, upload it to the cloud. If you have a direct link and it will automatically sync up, you can do
It
that.
can do all
sometimes.
sorts of things if you get a good recording.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have good recording for that particular type of system, and so that's the part, that's the last link we pretty much have to
We have
look
to
at.
figure out how to get that
Yeah.
link.
And the other advantage with 151 is we now have, all the MCAT equipment is
Mhm.
already there.
Yes.
And they have their own room, and Mary wouldn't have to pack stuff.
We have other meetings we have to do minutes for, so, again, we haven't taken that option off the table. We hold a lot of meetings that, you know, it would be nice to have the system. And we do tend to go toward the fuller minutes. And we use those a lot in our accreditation and some other areas, is to have the fuller minutes and not just the action items, because they're looking for the discussion.
Be great to have for the administrative hearings too.
Oh, for the administrative hearings, yeah. There's another, so I think we're I think we know where our weak spot is right now, and that's what we're hoping to do, but.
It also allows you to maybe delegate a little bit more, because I know that, for example, our current staff person who takes our minutes she's the newbie on the block, and I mean, she just picked this stuff up real easy and is churning stuff out, so.
Yeah.
The software is very slick to use, and it is in the clouds. It's just getting the right quality of audio.
And we had
recording.
trouble with that to start with. Right?
Mm-hmm. So we're learning from them, and then we want to start out with the right quality.
That's probably a good segue into item 10, the director's report and accreditation update.
I think I've given you the news. It's mostly good. We are under the gun of getting our documents ready, not for the formal upload, but for our internal upload. Once we put an application in for going back, we don't know anyone who's been through reaccreditation, so again, we're marching forward, not really. Exactly. And the way that it's done is different than the way your initial accreditation is done, and it's another version advanced that we weren't accredited under. So we've taken all that into account. What we don't know is, did we do it with the right emphasis or with the right depth? And however, one of the things that's quite different with this particular approach that they're using on reaccreditation is you put your application in, and your application has to go in within a certain time frame, which is sometime in early winter. And of course, we want a buffer frame for that. And then at some point, unbeknownst to us, because it's still new to them, they accept your application. When they do that, you have 2 weeks only to upload all of the documents. So we've been working over the past year creating the documents, and some of us are behind in creation of documents, but we want to get all that done by mid-December, avoid the holidays, and then review it and be ready to place our application.
2-week turnaround time is very different from when we sought
Yeah, you had
initial
12 months.
accreditation. We had 12 months to upload hundreds of documents. So
Yeah.
it's more of a challenge.
And if there was anybody who'd been through it, we could call them, but no one has yet. So guinea pig our way through.
Yeah. All right. Well, so that brings us to public comments and items not on the agenda. Seeing none, board and staff comments and items not on the agenda. All right, seeing none, we'll adjourn as the Board of Health and convene as the Water Quality District Board. And the first item in the Water Quality District is to approve some minutes. I believe we've got March, April, and October.
Yes.
It's always interesting to look back and see what we did.
Yeah.
And I was like, did we talk about that?
Another question I had is why some of them say Missoula Valley Water Quality District Board and some of them say Missoula City County Water Quality District Board.
Oh,
Did
yeah.
we switch?
We'll correct that on that October set.
Maybe we switched midstream.
Probably confusion between the Missoula Valley Water Quality District, I guess, but we're not the Missoula Valley Water Quality Board.
Whatever it says on top of that in the local is what we'll refer to and put it in for the
The October minutes look like they're the correct title. So I guess those would be changes to both the March and the April minutes would be the correct title.
I would move to adopt the minutes with the corrections to the title for all 3 months.
All right. Any public comments on the motion on the floor? Any board or staff comments or discussion on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. So moved. All right. Now we
Blubbing underwater somewhere.
looks like Travis is still here, so
Maybe he
he's
is.
going to give us an update
In
to
the
Water
swimming
Quality
pool.
Advisory Council
God, I hope not.
meetings.
Hello again. So the advisory council met this week on Tuesday. I thought we might actually cancel because we didn't have a lot on the agenda, but the council has taken on this project. So when the Milltown Dam was removed, EPA funded 2 kiosks. One was at the Milltown State Park now in Bonner, and then another was at Jacobs Island by the Bark Park. And those kiosks have been empty for, well, they just haven't been updated since the dam was removed, so 10 years. Long time. And the council has taken on the project of developing content for those kiosks and using them. And is really excited about it. So for the first advisory council, I think this year, we didn't have Smurfit Stone on the agenda. And so they wanted to spend the time to develop some content for that. They've broken up into work groups. So there's a work group that's working on a sign for the Rattlesnake Dam removal project, one for flooding in general, one for aquifer protection, the measures that are in place to protect the Missoula Valley aquifer, and there was another one. They have engaged an environmental studies student to develop a map showing how the valley and the aquifer, Clark Fork, how it all ties into the greater Columbia watershed. And so they reviewed that map with the grad student at this last meeting and had some suggestions. So they're 43-inch square panels, pretty big panels, 2 of them. And so the map will be on one side and then the content will be on the other. The district has committed to developing some, working with a graphic designer to make it kind of a plug and play, easy development sign, but it's something that looks good and people actually read. So yeah, that's what they talked about on Tuesday. We do have some things coming up at the next meeting. So DEQ is developing new water quality standards, so groundwater and surface water standards, and those include manganese, which has been a big issue at Smurfit Stone, interestingly, really high levels of manganese, but there are, I think, 4 other chemicals, dioxane and some chemicals that are used for fire retardants, so they're developing standards for those in groundwater and surface water. So we hope to have somebody from DEQ to discuss that. Also, the DEQ non-point source program, so there's the program that monitors like wastewater treatment plants and the point source dischargers, but then there's the non-point source program, and that does more education and restoration work. They are targeting the Bitterroot watershed as their #1 priority watershed to spend non-point source money in. So that means that up to 50% of the budget for the whole state is for this non-point source program. It's called 319. It's going to be directed at Bitterroot. So they're going to come next month and talk with the council about ideas. We have 5 openings, I believe, right now in the advisory council. It's a big council. There's 20 seats on it, and 5 are up for to be filled. So if you know of anybody who's interested, please get the word out. They're appointed by the board. So we'll bring those to, I can't remember, to just the chair or the whole board? I think it's just the chair. It's been really functional, great, successful board or a council really, got a lot of expertise on it. So.
Thanks, Travis.
Yeah.
With that, we go straight into public comments and items not on the agenda. And seeing none, board and staff comments and items not on the agenda.
I have a
Jean?
couple. So one, I have a question for Travis. The state cut the money for gauges on the river that tell us how the water's rising, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that we should add as a legislative goal? Is that the legislature that did that, or do you know where the money got stolen from? Or who stole it?
Yes, it was, and I can't recall. I believe it was DNRC actually that had the cuts. I think that would be a good legislative goal to restore some funding for those gauges.
So if you put something together, the commission, we have hired a new lobbyist, and it could be something for the commission to talk about as a priority, because I think we could have used it this spring, for example. Then the other is just that the Sealy Lake Sewer meets again tonight, Sealy Lake Sewer Board. And as you know, there was three of 5 new board members were elected in May. As of yesterday, 2 have resigned of the new people. So they last month interviewed, and their bylaws allow them to replace that the board picks who fills vacancies. So they interviewed 2 people last month, one who was kind of pro and one who's kind of against. And there was a 3rd person that they're going to interview tonight. But it looks like in the end, Barbara Evans used to say the world is round. What goes around comes around. And it looks like in the end, we will have 4 people for the sewer back on that board. So it should be an exciting show tonight, because their bylaws also say that the chair any officer can be taken out by the board at any meeting. And apparently there's a coup arranged, so.
Yeah. If you can't witness it in person.
I always said, I went to high school there, but I didn't grow up there, and I always said, if they didn't have anything to talk about, they made it up, and here, you could not make some of this stuff up. So, yeah. So it should be interesting, but they are going forward with they have the plans are to Great West to finish the drawing so it can go to bid, and so hopefully tonight we'll see that. I keep reminding them that we're going on this path forward. The attorney that they used in the, case trying to stop the sewer, very clearly in his brief to the court stated how this board is really obligated to go forward because of decisions that were made last year. And so we just keep reminding them where they are. It is funny, however, because I always tell people I take my Cracker Jacks law degree. So in other words, all the things that I've been, learned from our attorney staff, but there's a power play in place there where I am required to stand at a certain point and be recognized by the chair before I am allowed to speak. I play her game. So. Can't write these stories, you just can't.
You're gonna miss that so much.
Well, that one I'll probably keep going for a while just because it's entertaining.
I don't know what they do, I don't know how they'd have a meeting without you, since they want to close meetings and.
Yeah.
Actions and closed meetings don't get very far.
No. So it's fun. That's
So we
what we'll do
just,
tonight.
for those of us that don't go, although many staff do go, we just make sure we read the Pathfinder.
Yeah. Nathan's always there. Yeah. So next month's week's Pathfinder could be interesting.
And I do have a comment, I wish I would have thought of it when I was allowed to speak, I just said it here.
Well, of course, just stand and be recognized.
Yeah, stand there. Certain spot by the podium, she says, and there is no podium.
behind the podium.
She sounds awesome.
I had communicated with Julie earlier this week on something I've been thinking of for some time, and just because I didn't want to step on Julie's toes, but I'm just not finding that there's a lot of naturally occurring opportunities for our staff and managers, and particularly with a new management team to interact with city council members. Other than the formal ones, we're always welcome. We do updates, and those are very, very much appreciated. So I called the president of the council, Brian von Lossberg, and just talked about the new management team. We seem to have diminishing opportunities to, and it's because everybody's busy. I mean, we're busy, they're busy, they meet a lot. And I said it does seem counterintuitive that I would then ask you for some meeting time, but I really feel that we need to do that. And he was very open.
He's
So
awesome.
I think what we're going to set up is some sort of meeting event for the whole new management team with the city council, those that are interested in attending, and then just have some not even formal topic meetings, a few times a year. So it might be on a water quality issue, or it could be on what's going on now with smoking and vaping, and and just get up to speed on this. He was very, very open to that, so I'm pretty excited about having this newer management team and this council have the opportunity to spend more time together. We get more opportunities at the county. Now, we didn't have a regular meeting at the county all these years until last year, and already never felt neglected by any means, but already just knowing that, there's going to be an opportunity to say, hey, what about this, and hey, what about that?
Yeah, you used to just be part of a bigger group, so.
It was
nice to have
a
that.
bigger group, and you didn't get a lot of two-way, what are you thinking, or, so I do
Yeah.
hope it's two-way, that the
Yeah.
counselors will also say, I'd like to learn about, or hear about, or have you explain the following.
Yeah, our format's not always conducive to two-way communication when you come in, and
Yeah.
it's been a little hard to report back to council this year because a lot of the things we've been doing have been in litigation.
Mhm.
It's like they want to know what's going on with Smurfit, they want to know what's
Yeah.
going on with the smoking club. I'm like, well, I can't really
Yeah, so
talk
that might
about
be
that
a-
yet. So, but obviously the vaping, you came before council
Mhm.
a couple times on the vaping issue, and council's very interested in that. They're very interested in,
Well,
I know Dr. Singer and I talked one time about maybe not, if there's any way to get away with people not smoking under 21, if there was a way to institute something like that. And all those things are definitely topics that we want to talk about,
Yeah.
as well as I think there's some discussions right now about what to do with the flavored vaping products in stores.
given that the FDA is starting to act or threatening
Right,
to act.
and I encouraged a couple of the members on council I said, have you talked to health board yet about that? I said, you really should talk to all of our community partners before we institute anything, because, we have a lot of convenience stores. The way it was written was saying, kind of convenience stores were the ultimate evil in allowing kids. I said, you can't do that. We have a lot of community partners in Noons and Ole's that actually want to do good. So, get together with the health department first. And so there's a lot of room to continue those discussions in a
We
non-formal
just have
format.
to make time to do it, and so,
Yeah.
looking forward.
Yeah. So what is the opportunities that the health department has to communicate with the county commissioners? I'm just curious how that
We have a
works.
regular established meeting with the health
Yeah,
department now.
we didn't used to, but we
Okay,
do now.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's, is it every month, every other?
Is it during the
It's every
meeting?
month, some get canceled. The other thing that happens there is all of our contracts almost all, are signed by the commission. And the process that they have now is not a rubber stamp process.
Mhm.
We have to
Talk to us
describe
about
what it
each one.
is,
Mhm.
what it's for, the money, so on and so forth. I will say we went kicking and screaming into it, but we have those opportunities now to say, no, this is the money for this program, and it's doing that, and we get that exchange going.
Are they publicly noticed meetings?
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
3 times a week, and so anything that any action item, not just a contract.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays at 10, so
And so a lot of, it's very,
it's like an
very
agenda like
efficient.
this.
Yeah, we've
It's
never had
succinct.
anything like that with council, for
Yeah,
sure,
a
with
lot
any
of back and
department.
forth goes on during
Yeah.
those, and so we also learn about what other department heads' projects are, so we can see where they intersect. And it wasn't set up for that purpose, but I will say that's been a benefit that's come out of it.
So the regularly scheduled meetings in addition to those are what, once a month
Mhm.
then? And so who all from the health department goes to those
I
meetings?
go, and then whatever topic they're interested in, or I'm interested in presenting, I take that staff person or
Right, so
several staff
sometimes
people.
it's
We usually
environmental
cover-
health, it just depends on.
Nursing, we usually cover 3 to 5 issues.
We have an hour.
Huh? Yeah.
And maybe you and I can get together on some topics that I can let you know that council's interested in, like mental health and,
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
yeah. So, as a city-county entity.
So they might want PHC to come and talk about that too, because
Mhm.
they've got.
Yeah, PHC used to appear in front of city council a lot more because they used to have to ask for their money every year. And then it became.
We've never seen them since in the
Yeah,
last
and,
3 years.
You know, and I know there's interest, and of course, we don't want to create meetings to create meetings. But I was thinking of that as well, Lori could come along and just talk about some of the things that are going on. And
Well, like we're enacting an emergency ordinance right now to allow the Salvation Army to house houseless individuals overnight as a warming shelter because Union Gospel Mission, under the current statutes and ordinances, can no longer have overnight guests with the way they're set up. So that probably has health implications somewhere along the line,
Absolutely. I
or
mean,
there were
that's
touch
something-
points that could be.
Transportation issues.
Yeah, so I mean, all of us working in a silo is not
Right.
working.
Yeah. So again, not to take and use just more time, but to
Yeah.
really create some opportunities for that kind of
Yep.
discussions. I'm encouraged by that, and I think it'll be particularly good for a new management team, and even though it's going to be very difficult in a legislative session, it's going to be necessary in a legislative session. I mean, sometimes the city and the county don't agree on a certain piece of legislation, or a city-county entity. Those are things we need to be aware of.
Well, and I think we should certainly notice those meetings to our legislators as well, if you're able to, like Wills Curdy and Marilyn Marlar, and, I mean, they're just, I think, if they're here.
Yeah, there's a lot of champions for health issues on the city council, as there is on the county commission. We just don't see them as much.
Okay. Any other water quality district
And the water went under the bridge.
comments or staff comments or items not on the agenda? All right, with that, we will adjourn as the Water Quality District Board and convene as the Air Pollution Control Board. The first item is the April and October minutes from the Air Pollution Control.
It's short.
Yeah.
Move we accept the April and October minutes.
All right, with the motion on the floor, is there any public comments or on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, any board or staff comments or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
So moved. All right. All right, way to go, James.
Glad to know you're awake, James.
Thanks for hanging in there. With that, we move straight into public comments on items not on the agenda. Seeing none, then board or staff comments on items not on the agenda.
I just have a question for Ellen. So this is like, going back in time, but when we established the burn permit program in Missoula County, I think we were one of the first counties to do that. So for those of you who haven't used it, you can go online, you can sign up for a burn permit, you pay your $5, but then you still call in to make sure the air quality is right for it. And if it gets too hot, they close it and that kind of thing. But I remember the discussion back then. I don't know why I thought about this in the middle of the night the other day, because we charged $5, but we talked about that was to pay for the software, and that we thought, I remember the conversation to say that we thought someday in the future, maybe there wouldn't be a cost related.
I don't remember the part about that there would sometime in the future not be a cost.
Okay.
I do remember, and that could be selective memory, but I do remember one particular, back then in particular, decided there should be no cost whatsoever, and we had numerous conversations about that.
Because we had to pay for that software to
Right,
get
I
set
mean,
up to start with.
yeah.
Now everybody uses it. but-
Yeah, I don't know that we
It
were
must be a
paying to
maintenance
buy
fee.
the software as much as we were paying to use it, so we still have to use it.
Okay. I just
And,
don't know why that stuck in my head.
And I, of course, can't speak for the fire halls either, you probably could do better with that, but they're all part of that decision because they can go to the fire hall and, you know, they're a part of that. There's
The fire-
there's the safety, well, they were part of the system, they don't go to the fire hall, they do it online.
Uh-huh.
But
The fire
they're all
department.
part of that system because, of course, we're involved with the smoke management, but very fundamentally, fire is involved with safety, when you light a fire, and it has to be out.
So, I mean, it works well because I, of course, have a cabin that has things that need to be cleaned up and burned, like maybe this weekend. But once you've established that permit, it's really easy then just to go back in the next year and reactivate it. And then, of course, just call in that phone number and check on the call for the day. So it works well. It also
So much better than it used
helps
to be.
people know that, yes, there's somebody burning on Craft Creek Road, you don't have to send the police. Okay, that's all I could comment.
Any other board or staff comments and items not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll adjourn as the Air Pollution Control Board and all three boards.